So let's review a little bit about what we've covered in terms of our learning objectives. So yesterday, I asked you to describe what learning objectives you had based on a specific topic.
And
then I asked you to think about how long it would take you to teach the topic. So something we went over was how much contact time you would need with the students to communicate a particular idea. But I also wanted us to think about the concepts that we were asked to teach, the topics. Each of them could be a full year's class. So what we really want to do is to make sure that we are clear on what we want the students to get from the instruction. Okay. So here we go. So I asked you to in your on-site session today, to think about what assessments or what questions you might ask your students. It is very important that we can match the assessment to the goals. Okay, so if we are planning to have our students learn how to describe something, your assessment needs to match what your intentions are. So I'd like to see what questions you all prepared and how you did them. So I will go into our folder again. Okay, here we are. Okay. Before I start selecting tables and for you to tell me about your assessments, I'd like to hear from the group about if there were any difficulties with this or challenges or what part, just a little bit about the exercise putting together these questions. Any comments?
Yes.
Hello.
Hey.
So I got a little bit confused when
we was talking to make an assessment. So to the assessment, we believe that there is a two kind, formative and summative.
Yes.
So the formative assessment is, like can be made before made the lesson plan, because it's we can include it in the engage, from the 5E drive, we can put it in engage. But the rest of the for the summative assessment is I really got confused because we haven't done the lesson plan. What is we just set up the time, right? Learning goal and time.
Yes.
How we will teach in a week, but we didn't make the detail.
Okay.
Today and which board. So that's why like I was a little bit confused.
Yes.
How to the summative assessment.
Okay. So what table are you? Remind me.
Table 4.
4. Okay. Shall we look at see what you have?
Dana gozuge dinsin shibage ta kange chayate kange sagurwa ta te chigati sta topa dogol hayate ga lesson sena matsuge jeshibi baina ya matsuge danda jindang jeshi chitang thamage ane chodang jeshi chigorwa jindang jeshi tena da tigdu da sugo de ko hoptu suga na ne sugo tuna leg chiga da chi kusuga da tig kana do chi chigi me te ata adres imba na ya ane chodang ge jeshi de stambala des kange te son stambo de la ya matsuge chi ne Mui kari yemen je tang tene tizyo katsu jingo kare ma tope nga tsuge jiga karsugal hamzin charanggo ge cheta ta jibo ting sabu droyo marwa ting stambala ya ku ge ane drowa de ta tadik jibi kapsa ane ku karsugare jiga kangen dogol haya dhawa tang ane topa dogol haya tila chansons.
Okay, so thank you for that question. And yes, that's a very important thing. So one of the things I wanted you to be able to think about is if you have an idea of what your students should be competent in at the end of the time, then you can go back and make the lesson plan to match that.
Aha. Ta drowa de tang no tuji chipe ya gores ta tin na shenge ro tanda ge ani chorang ge ta mui de na se korwa ta mui de ge na la ya ani mui de ge na la ya thama de la ya so prisu la ya ta ko ge ta lakse sen na competence la na ta korang ge ko to chi ro te kandan ro chi nye mnye de tang pon ha ko im ba na ani dina ro chi ta thamsin de cha ba na ko ge de da shingu ge se ge cha shi dina ro chi tang ba ina ani tene yang chi ya do de ta ti shi sha de ta ni thamsin chang go la so ba che yo res.
So reviewing yours, and this is all done in English, which is great. Did you create these questions, or did you take them from another test bank?
Da da che su ge te chwa te do ga chwa de ta ni che su ge su su che su gu de sha je du su zo je me ya na chwa tang pa ne zo sha ju to re chi to ju de dai mes.
Hello. So we have 10 questions. We created 10 questions. Some of them we copied from the ETSI student resource from the year 3 class. Is it taught about the touch and temperature and pain. So some we copied from this ETSI resource and some we created.
Very good.
Ta kashi che tanda nga su emer tu pach tsari le ram ge igzo chorwa tsari inze to ane ta loren sumba ge de la nga su na su ta de ge nga nena ba ta te so ba joshi te kan la ye tu ste na ne nga su ka chla ba ins ni shen da ba nga su sa ba zu ji nis to.
Okay. So I want to go to this slide where you are discussing some of the different types of assessments. And you include here perform a research project by group of 5 students.
Ta da de ga ta ba ba ne che tu ge che shi we ri kan do chi chi ge se ti ge na ne hola ya ani se tu le ya din san ga ge ro ta so tu nga ge trip ge ne ru kha ge ani ko shinji ge sha chi tu gu la sha dos.
So what this appears to me is that for this topic, you will need more than just a few interactions, because if you are going to be running a research project, you will have to get time to build the research project into the course.
Na ha da ge ro ti na shin ge chi su ge 게티 디레도게 도세치 드부고 요바이네 당본이 제시당고 요리스 당본이 제시당데다 덕세디 강라 당야기 추초디 네 당본 홈슨 드비기 전고 집이 값에 디나들이 쭈구쭈구 용고 요리스.
So if you'll describe for me how long you think this would take, and how much time you expect to teach in this particular, based on what you have outlined here.
나한테 나나 제쪽에 지샤바이 만에 제쪽들라 chamber 저듯이 샤바이 만난 데이터 버플 트리아 티알라와 독틀의 티 차와지라 제쪽 뒤인가 조금 거를 상도스.
So actually, I personally didn't, involve this discussion. So my friend says the time period is six days, because our lesson plan is 6 days. So I think we are going to introduce to them, research on touch and pen from the beginning of the day, and then collect data at the end of the day.
Okay. So in the convent, in the nunnery, you will have how much time to teach these lessons, and what age group are you teaching?
So this lesson is for year 3. It is according to the ETSI curriculum, is for the year 3 student.
So you will just use the same year 3 curriculum.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And if that's the case, then you will have a full day, that morning and afternoon sessions to cover the material. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Forgive me. I was thinking that this was going to be that you were creating a lesson plan that would be integrated into your regular science lessons. And so I had a picture of it over a course. So I'm learning a little bit about the structure of what your intentions are.
다단다 지금 배나로 다다기 티로 당가 속에 런천 창고디 다다 게라기 속에 되는 그 제트송 곰발라야 아니 곰바이 마네지 속에 남진 진짜 가나 로트고레 드네로 데시전 스탐발라야 조디 담 최라게 소야 디제 바이나 고다 단다기 런천게 창고디 니마틱게 나한테 차야 저우제 고 심지도 바이나 담보데라야 아니 신중고 조진용 공자미니 고 디스고로 가서 그래 당가 저 장투들 지야라 소파게 tamambu chingura te chigorwa tanda gela se baina gela ge samsin baina ne de tanda ge thomsin ge changgon de ta chorong ge namjin thomsin changgo chigu yorwa thomsin chigu yo ba tinang la ya ne ko da di tang chi de chigu yo pa chila ya samla tang yes baina ya tanda che chu zo de tanda de shi ja ta che bai baina emer to po sandri le ram ge karsugre da lo Simbagi and each coge lapsichiorwa or de Najing Triasam Deshas.
Okay. So this looks like a very well organized set of lesson plans, actually. So you did create the lesson plan here. And so your assessments do match the lesson plans that you have created.
That is the Bachetu de la Lumsing Chango de Bay also shas. Tina net hopper the Neola J. Sugar Kachi or what is Samaya Taba in Bina, any data ne Chorangulum Sengi, Chango, Gimgitong, Changotan, any Tumburin those.
So do you think your colleagues here, the other folks who are participating in this workshop, do you think that they have the background to be able to answer some of the questions that you've included?
That the data Zushini or Subjona Zushini Shenda Chitsugi, those that Shenda or Pashendas who Samatan by Mana, then Zushini and the Thomas Samatan by Mana Kotsugi, they let draw down you or what? Draw down Shaju de la Land Jayagi, what? Any that hooked on it, then the which trip and hooked to like draw and they tell a Land Jayagi, Kusula Jabjung, she said in your surveys.
So I would want to ask this, right?
Hello.
Yes.
I can say it's yes, because all of us finished it as a year 3
Okay.
class.
Good. So
Some of them they forget, but it's easy to remember when you look at the information from Google.
right.
Mm.
So when you start to make the connections, it will come back.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is in English, but I wondered if do you have your table cards? Would the different tables be able to vote on the answer for this question?
Yes, I think so. They have the colored card. Just the ABCD use or what?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I don't know if it needs to be translated, but I would like to see if folks could answer this question.
That de la ya len jaro chesa, that len ti ga tele chitu yu pen chesa.
Ready? I think they are ready.
Yes. So I'd like to see the answers.
We'll go with 1 or 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, Kalinda. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, there are four. Are there four? There are four answers.
Yeah, kya da?
Yeah, there are four answers.
A translation go there. The two translation goes inside.
Then the translation they have the tambo de ga su sensation le na ta shi source na source shi sena de ka res wa sensation wa. That's what the issue that's what those na source shi sena. The tambo de ga su ge ane jin sen tang den bi ge ane ta chu ji ya ge ni ba su ge res wa. Ane ni ba de ga su koi la ane ka sa bre deju ji 거의 던 레트주에 비디오 that 거의 던 레트주에 아니 레바는기 기 리츠주어로 메커니즘 세널리가 지당주어로 들이 센세션 사이트 소시 사이트 아니 somebody 가레세나 아니 뭐 시디 가레세나 가수 철론이 거기니 좀 되게 아니 직쟁이 쓰고다 직쟁이 다 구찜디다도 아니 중콜이 나가 줄 니고 가줄 땅데 땅서 그러다 줄데 nga 소게 왕자기 다 tumbalarwa 왕자기 달라도 줄고요레스 네 줄데 된 카치네 nga 소게 다 링감게 다 perception스는 도시기 나바데라야 차그레스 뭐가 시디 데 데데가레스나 아니 미션다게 아니 설명디 니 지처트 비기니 바데레스 다 되게 나네 아니 다 담가 나네 에르데 비르데 세르데 디르두스 다인다 양신다 쯔니선
So
I see.
almost all of them have C. There is only 2 B and 1 D.
I would like to hear why no one selected A.
에 가르치네 담에 진센지 송로치에사
예, 가진 담에 줌제 신이 왜? A member 줌제 C member 줌제.
You see, but I want to hear from A and D and B. So C is, as the instructors, C is the correct answer. Is that right? Or is it B?
그래서 트니치오로 트니치츠루게 다 다르치니
Hello.
는 디바디 관계레스
The correct answer is C.
Yes.
Mm.
So which one is a distractor? That is, which one is close enough to the answer,
Okay.
but not exactly right?
ta draw down sta bala nga su thinda yo ro draw ji da dru ba je draw ta de na ni draw chi ma se len chi dru ba je len shen da ro ba chi ko de yong go do yo ro
Give me
len
to
ba
someone.
de ta ni bo je ro ta nga su la chi go ko ta ni ro se go ro ta de kang gi me se na de na ne
B, maybe.
B. I think
It
the
seems
most
the B.
close is the B.
Okay, good.
And
So I will share, and this is in English, but for multiple choice questions, a really good multiple choice question will have only one correct answer. But it will have at least one distractor that's really close to being correct. And so you have to be able to distinguish between the content knowledge. So you have to know if it's a distractor.
da 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 ngi chang nga chu chi ten chi je ba in ba na ka ri yo re se na ani dam ka ma wi draw in ba na ko ge ya shin ba na na la ya dam ka shi ne nga len la ya dam ka shi ne nga yue ba da ani ti na ni len chi tu ba wa ani ti na ni da shen da chi distractor system ba len go ko ta ni su ro go ko ta ni de ani len tu ba de ta ha cha tha ni bo ai yo bu na ya bo yo
Okay, so for yours, we go back. B appears to be very close to the correct answer.
da de na ne be de ba na ani len tu ba de ta tha ni bo dos
Can you describe why B is not correct?
be mentuno go jensen ni kari chine res
hello.
Yes.
I think the B is not really talking about the sensation. You know, like physical. When we talk about the sensation, it's more about the sense.
So it's the physical symptoms. It's
Yes,
the
physical
physical
sense.
stimuli. It's what's in the environment. The brain mechanisms, do you know what we would call the brain mechanisms for converting once it's converted?
Yes. So one is converted physical stimuli, right?
Yes.
In the environment and into neural signals. But the B is just, you know, like it interacting with the environment, but not talking about converting to the physical sensation.
Very good. And the sensation is not at the brain level. So sensation is at the environment and stimulus level, and that's converting to neural signals. But the brain mechanisms would more be the perception.
and da de ro te sit tu ba ta be de ani te skoro chen be jensen kar ne be de na la ya nga chu khori ta ani chikar su gre de show na do chi ya ge ne de pe nang gi li chu li ka che ta te res gorwa na de ka sim ba na ani zo de nga chu ge ta de ta chwa tong chu shi se ge chwa se ge tong na chu shi se de ka sim ba na zo de ani khori ta nyam te do chi de de ta nga chu chwa le ji gorwa ta wa zo de le gi res ti na ne tanda nga su yang ti yang le pe na tele tu yo ma res nga chu khori tang ta kar su re te li pu su ko pu cha shi kar chi ti lam ba na ti ni ga thu ya gi cham te la ya ni nga chu ta chwa ta la gi res wa tanda gi ta le pa na ya do yi le pa gi ta ku li chu ti ke sham sta ba le pa na ne man chu shu nga su ge the perception su ro ndu shi le chi wa o te gen na ba ti ngi res.
So this is a successful question because it gives an opportunity for there to be dialogue about what is actually correct and what is almost correct.
Da da de ko chua di ba na chua de tum di tang den bi chua chi re to stati ge na ne jin sen gar chi la ba na de la tin de ti ko so la ya de ge na ne len chi ba de kang ge sha ma de ba de kar je sha ti jin sen gar chi ne re sa ge ne ko chua lan chi ge yang ko shin da u chi yan de ko chon chi to.
So thank you very much to Table Hippocampus for being very brave to be the first ones to discuss and to highlight these issues with creating assessments.
Da da den chi shi ba go ne ba na tang ko tang ma chi de tan de kan tu de chi wa ta ne nga su ge de do kap sa ne chi shu ko ri chi bi kap sa ne kang ge kar yo pa tong tong la chi ko kar yo pa te ta ne chi tu ka sa ne de je na no tu chi chi is.
I noticed that while I was in here, this was blank at first, but I see that now it has some points.
다 단계 니 가서 선생님 단계 가서 담보 주의 가서 반나 단계게 되게 년쇼지로 때 반네 통파르샤스 다 단단한 가시지 주 차샤스.
So I wanted to ask another question, and I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but I wanted to ask a question about how you expect to assess the students' engagement with this section.
다 단단히 반네 치수게로 롭투수게 다 냠치 지야랑 신지어로 때 반네 치수게 되게 딘센 디페지 동데 다 간다 센자기 베스 간다 스타기 베스.
Hello. So for this part, we got a little bit discussion in our group.
Yes.
So most of it we agreed, we will do a formative assessment. So student will let them discuss what really pain means, and also different types. Actually the different types of pain from the Western perspective, we already at this level of class, right, already taught. So at this time, then we will let them discuss and then share their idea.
Yes.
And because we believe the student, already have the Buddhist education, and then and then we give them the Western perspective of pain and touch, and then for this we just discussion.
Okay, I would like to try that. Can we try that in this class?
Yes, of course.
단다 아니 최락의 송아이란데 만나 단다게 니탄 디나로지라 해가서 산이근 전다데 트리치 첸데라 해피 값스 아니 지가 너쇼바기 스고로다 너쇼바 첸리그나니 아니 그 나스기세티 당 아니 터치스는 가서 락파스고와 어디기 아니 지가 고튼 강라칸스니 아포 똑바체 아니 또데요 레스타 디 값심바나 가서 디기 제십티 간다치긴스나 롭투 솔라야 아니 데이터 너쇼바게 고 차리크나네 고아 간다 슬랭기 유메게 네탄데 아니 고나 롭투솔라 나치가나야 지고 돈 니르지데 단다 세카나 감살 해요자 아니 지 차리크나게 나스글라 소페게 네탄데 네 나치나게 데당 드루바이나 간다로 지요사레스 고솔라야 트리드지기지 트리드지누 지라야 아니 전자나네 지 삼츠 송기지 데이터 딩아 소기 제시그나 바지라 ane dus churginyas ane ti sons tambala ane gyan la gya ta ti baina ne tanda nga so gya tandan jindra na ne nga so ge ti ji ya karsu chatan ro ji na ma digro es ane ti tanda chola digre sons.
So my question for the whole group is, do you feel like you remember enough about neuroscience perspective on pain in order to talk about how it is similar to or different from the Buddhist approaches about pain?
Handa jinda chamala try instead nga su ge tira do chiro an show tsanri ke na ne ane nasi se ti ye ko ta te go chi yo chi ta te ge ne ta de ane nang pa ge na ne nang chu na ne yang ko na zu ge ne ta zu nyam te ta ko timbi cha kari tu matimbi cha kari tu se te ge chepren je la yan dina do chi je ba ina 아니 최초의 원에 아니 지금 너쇼 찬리나야 아니 지금 나주 당대 콜라 레시제샤주가 네탄테 아니 지가서던 능이 좀 바치와 전부 수고도에스.
Do you need a quick refresher course in pain?
다 단다 세대 가서고서는 단다 최초라야 티 인차냠트 같은 차트 맞춤 바데 드드치세나 차리게 되는데 탱고요. 때 템바 수구도에 다 삼로 나는데 에서 로일라도 에서 तति गेलागे तांदा यासे जोते करसने चेतला यासे जोबन चरजोंची चिगु देसा.
You're quiet today.
Yes, we want some revision.
Okay. So I think these slides already are translated because they're from year 3, is that right?
PowerPoint is manchi sheet and the Lawrence Bagatini Langeroes, Lambainata, Piginatali Jushayor was.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, many diagram, many like a photo we copied from the year 3 lesson,
Yes. So they should
and
also,
then so can I give the answer here?
yes.
So far my understand, the Western perspective of pain is more talking about the pressure, and also it's really like the in terms of it get more like depend on the physical body,
Okay.
but we put this like when we define to the pain, it's not is there's a physical pain, but it's more related with the mind
Okay.
and sense like mind, so it's this is one different.
Okay.
And
Good.
also one thing is, like why so we have one question for the engage, do we really need pain for our survival in terms
Yes.
of survival? So this is also different from the Buddhist perspective and this Western scientists. Western scientists, like sometimes I think they believe, we need pain in terms of survival, like
Yes.
yes, but we don't believe, we don't need any pain. We have to
Ah,
free from pain,
okay.
so this is also a different perspective.
Oh, this is very interesting. So I want to
Yeah.
stop here and ask each table. So you asked the question and then you also answered it, but I would like to hear from each table. So even if we don't go through a refresher course of the details about pain, I would like each table to spend some time talking about what the differences are between the Buddhist perception of pain and the neuroscience perception of pain, and then share with the group. So you gave a really good answer, but I'd like to hear from the other tables as well.
Ahanda tanda chela ge lenti jab kasim baina akaresana ti tampo tanda nga chu ta chailu pa tang ro ne shok chailu pa ta ne nangpa ge chu nasu se ti por ta phen se ti ro nasu ko la ko lan ta man do yo is ta chi chailu pa no ne ki chailu ke chi shang stamba la ya zo de ne shi le pa do tang ti gi chani ke chi shi du sta no shi le pe chani ke chi shi du se na persona nga chu ge luchu ra lungkham ra la tane li la ting de tan luchu la ting de te me na chu ke cha shu shi de shas de ane de le to pa de na ba in ba na lu ge chi te gan shu shi kumar chu nga chu samla na zu se de samla ra le be ge ni tang ga ne ke cha shi yung go res de me se de kuran ni che pa chi res ta che pa shen da chi he she ba in ba na nga chu chu ne ge te ne ke cha shi yung res ta chu ne ge te ne ke cha shi bi ka sim ba na 아니 자유바인 바이나 가츠치 순이라야 지나스 지용구 유비니 탄도 지시행도 순이지라야 나주디 용구 유비니 타시행도 임바이나 바이나야 다 남바인 바이나 지나수스고로 펜디 나수다티 기르데 아니 지 메바 나당아서 다지 등에도 트레일리 원도 가서고와 어디다 도그니 딱 지시행도 스틴스 남발라야 고게 챕터 티간의 통고도 우스티 손스티치라니 겐라기야 다 송아데 카르리스나 어다티 저런 게 좋아데 랜디 온스탄발라야 랭기 자 통통 네탕 차니 어떤 농통 차니 바나 아니 고 지목세 양sam부지리도 스타틴스 담발라야 아니 좋아데 아니 지금서 딱 훔친디 그스 저지부 무슨 좀 그거서 무구이 간에 아니 단다게 좋아데 아니 진짜 참말에 단계 인스니 최초원에 삼로 당바인 바이나 지금 냅쇼바기 천류바기 삼로 당당기 나주세 대당 아니 난추게 나네 손베기다 나수수고라다 어떤 이거 바로라야 개퍼를 가리도 자사 가리도 아니 문다사 가리도 뛰고라 네 최초에 트레이더 지나로 제 승인 바이나 네 최초에 네 단다 철학의 송어가 단 데리 데베기 你去做个要求公司当三次，两个人有办法那第二个月这个都是。
All of that. So 5 minutes. I will go and try to find my slide. But I would like for you to discuss and then share with the group what are the differences and similarities between neuroscience perception of pain and Buddhist ideas about pain.
That is tambala tanda karma nga chu ku ke tregins karma nga na la ne che chu ge chu chai ri tang na chu na ne ne chu na su se ti ge ko la tu te la ya da sa tam da kare yu me ti ko la karma nga na tu ta na ches.
Okay, so spend 5 minutes at your table and then be ready to tell me.
Ne karma nga na la tu ta na ches ni ti je la ya chu mo tu na ches. Let's catch ne mo tu na ches.
겐다와 ngaso rikha nga ba ngini chilawida
That's all.
ngaso karasana dayaresene dana ngaso timunchene ani nangchi thone nangsuglae de da ngaso sana gar dorsen nangsi de ani lincho roma de ani yesoji yora yigin choa ani lewado dingara otiso nangsi kustogu mandis
More.
다디 칠로니 찐다 우체네 zubugang tanda di madewan rawatini yongda 어디서데 나즈 쿠스톤도 마도 아니 소소소소 삼는 rawatane 아니 셀 아니 등한 rawat은 소요하듯서 아니 나즈 쿠스톤 문드스
That's all. Our group number 5, you have a different opinion because one we talk.
에나 이게 zkamda zmekam데서 zkam데서 나자 용긴다 원디 레 용디스
Yeah, that's all.
zkam 빌하드서 텔라
Group number 5, we have a different, we have a discussion, we have a different view than the previous one because when we talk about pain, even if in Buddhism we think pain is also a physical sensation, is on the physical level, not in the not on the mental or emotional level. So that's why we think the pain is also on the physical level, is what is about how we physically feel some kind of stimulus, not about how we think or about a pain or something that we feel in our mind. Also, this kind of pain, I think, also the God in the physical realms also feel this, the pain.
Very interesting. Very good. Are there other tables that have, because now we have two different perspectives. Do the other tables divide up between those two, or are there additional things to think about?
Hanta danda nga su ge ta ti rukar wa ti tokse shiba da nga ba ni ge samna dang ta in ba na ko tumba ni cha song se wa man da wa cha song se ani che chu da shen da ta tokse danda la ju che chu yo wa che chu chama ne ta kan da cha do si ko ran ni ge sin ya ge ta wa te ju cho la ne tumba ni la cha de do ya te ta man da ge ya sam che shen da tin da ya do ye se sam ba ji yo sam ba ya na shiba de la ju yo esa.
So group number 1.
Yes, group number 1.
Yes.
Nasuksia dichida danda gengi danda lab taburisha. Nasuksia di ngasuchi sukungi tone da yungde hingi ani da choachila yongsorchila. Nasuksia da nambi dustisikia worba. Seri France tebene taburedo da ngasu chik zumuda chik tubaina. Da di Quran da tedang dites lohadish. Da tedang di ngasu nelembe gyuni ani pagi level da te worba. Da ngaransu ani nasu ngui jinza mala ani Quran zo ina peje nelemba chile shago isarda nelemba gyune ta te zumdi nasu re sha sha ruch ta nambi che samala tendegi zumu di tu di samala dila da tu bi choa chi verda yongso yongwa chi tendegi yongso di khran la da peje nasu shago isare de ma do ya sem Quran sem la yung de be tende kanyen de so da diso ya nasu insamare diso ko sem la kanyen tres la gur ma do sem la nasu do ja thani tes beje tang khabu do sidwa din za beje nasu la ye samare da chi suburan when yung de king ani choa dongal do chi odi sola da nasu lan di sir
Is
dimendo
yeah, as same as group number 5 is physical pain. When we talk about, like, even in Buddhism, when we talk about pain, it says it's very nazu. So pain, we talk about physical pain. We don't say mental pain. We say mental suffering or some kind of a cognitive, emotional part is associated with that. Also, in a neuroscience, when we talk about pain, usually we have that mechanism about the pain receptors. Also, in Tibetan Buddhism, when we talk about the pain, is really a kind of a feeling or sensation, but of course that need to be associated with this, a kind of external stimuli that you teach, like touch something, or someone just gives pressure on your physical body. So in that sense, we think that pain is also a physical level, not on our mental level. That is the sensation or feeling that you feel when you are pricked by something or you are pressed by something. So this mainly thing is related with the physical sensation, not on our mental level.
Very good. This is a really interesting and dynamic discussion, and I know that it is happening at your tables, but I also want the whole group to talk about it because it brings up different ideas. And I have some slides that I'll try to show you that allow both ideas to work.
Samlo yago tena ta ko tudpe yago changsha ti na shinge ne danda chizu dimchin chewe na la segura de chizu chama na ne ya dun shin da ge metanya be ya metu ti gan la ya ne chi dolan ro che ta tudu do na na ya go yore tin de nang tu be jiro ches ne danda in bai na ngi de la ne chi slide yo ro lon tin ta ti chi sha yu nyen shot in da kha chi ne chi tengi insta de la ta bai ba na ga so ge that is something nicha and something man ro ni chile bar wa something nicha yang ko ji method ni thya chor wa da something nicha la yang ko chi chi dang ne ko la ya jun se yu bi ne ta de ro chi and she ja yang those things number da de la ne lon chen chia gi nya sho ka chi yes.
So I'd like to hear from one more table, and then I will show you how you can, in your classes, when you have this kind of discussion, how you can pull them together.
Tanda ne dinsi shenda chike jimutra na ro chida sti jela ne tanda gin zinda na ne dida do gin geda gi samlu do sukura da chi samlu tang tang da chuti mando le pai bai na tin che pandum chi ya da ta tin che mit de kar su da do lang su na ya la ya kanda do gi thap shi teng gu yo me te gi jira mu chi ins na so gela ko mi do
Allah so nganzo gi samlo tang da tin ta wachire nazuk sai chi to lui dang sem ni ka le te wacha gi tu swa lui dang sem ni ka to ne te wacha gi tu pena ki kar se gure nazuk sai di ko kar se gure pena so so gi lui la ma gyon da wachi chungwa ina sem ge samlo tang cho gi thog ne ani na za shuk cher twa tang shuk chung twa chi tu swa dine gom dang dewe to nani chi shen gi tungel dang ani shen gi kyo dang rang le shen be kyo din samlo tang wa ina ya na za chung twa dang ani shuk che chung twa le kebar tu swa chi kang tar dor du na ngan so gi she di lusem ni ga le dewa cha gi dos sem gi to ne ya samlo ge chen bu tang wa da gyumse mang bu samlo tang wa ina chung twa dang ya na zu chung chung ji yin ba ina ya chi sem gi to ne ya chi ngam ra ge dang ani chi chen bu ji sui ba ina ani ko na zu gi rang shin shuk che zho gu dos wa ding li xue.
So we think Japan is a dynamic process. We can say it's a dynamic process related to both of our physical body as well as our mental state. Because if you are pricked by, if you have a scar, or if you're pricked by something, and that affects our mind as well. If we think about that scar or that pain, it intensifies. The pain intensifies, and it becomes bigger. And also, sometimes we do meditation, or we think about a broader perspective. and that pain that we felt just the intensity reduces. So there is that dynamic process between the sensation or feeling of pain in our physical as well as mental realms. So there is that dynamic process. That's why we think is related both to a physical body and our mental state.
Exactly. This is exactly what we think about in neuroscience as well. So much of what we're limited by is our use of words. So when my graduate student, Matthew, gave a guest lecture in my class and he wanted to talk about pain, these are some of the slides he used. And one of the questions he asked our students is, how do you define pain? So we talked about it in the group, similar to this, had some discussions, and we didn't have the Buddhist perspective, but we just talked about how would you define pain? And what he showed us was the actual definition that has been agreed upon by a society that studies and is concerned with pain. So they have a definition that they have decided is what we will use to describe pain. And so there are 6 additional notes, but the main definition has a really important word in it. It has to be unpleasant. Okay, so the physical part that you're talking about is important, but the mental part of how you experience it is what makes it pain. And here, again, with the words, right, we have 2 different words that mean the physical experience, what's happening, the mechanisms, and then pain is how it feels. So from the receptors and the stimulus, we can get a transduction or a change from the physical environment to a neural signal. So Dawa, I don't know if you have a different word for noxious or nociception versus pain, but for in science, there are two different things. One is just the physical stimulus and the change that it makes in your nervous system. And then the other is the full experience of how it connects and how it's associated.
Nociceptions kudogati by Nangatsugi Chiloki, Kuchinchila Tendete, and Nangatsugi and Nilemba Natelepugi, Shichintage, or Tigi Parugita, that Soati Rig, what I did, and as soon as a second person. But did Tatila nociception Jerwa, and here Natsugi, that Dika Nazu search or Pensati, and in Asutela, Trok and the Dochil Hay Megi, and Nitanti, Kanzata, Tigi Chiungi. That's all the same like you may take any county Deshajaya and it dig into pens at the patient on the rest.
So let me find this slide here. So here is an opportunity. If you're teaching this, you can have students look up any new articles that are being published that talk about pain.
That and the Cherangit the Trigo Banan de la Karsa. Ani tanda nazutan dewa yu chugirwa nazutan dewa yu chugi tata ani jushi tinda kona trisha chugu somi tinda yure tila tanda dikyo res tanda nociception setting atsuge sungus di jusha sungu.
So here, if you recognize this word amygdala, we are familiar with as processing emotional signals. And this article that we have screenshot here, this article is about how the amygdala has a response to pain.
The amygdala comes to shoot on the ones at the day by Nanga get the Kasugre, Semyon Titanjin like picture Chichago, or de any Nasuge Nazudi, Cursor, Layala Yaku, Jelendo Karindo, which you miss a colores.
So there are people who have different experiences of pain. So this is a really important graph in pain. And what it shows is each line is a different person and how much they rated a pain scale from 0 to 100.
They rated to just one are like similar, same.
So the same stimulus is 48 degrees stimulus. It's just a little warm. And then they give 321 people and ask them to say on a scale of 0 to 100, how much pain do you feel?
Okay. Yeah, today, yeah, costume, they get Kuchinti carried the Senate all at 48 degrees Celsius, that Joseph is that Tumborash, that this. That's how Sabura Jumbo get to sit in a dog and a Kuchin trade and a day Latin date and Nazu Jonjo de and a Kogatatila Sechijarochi, Susumunirwa, Nishini, Malekoni, Japati Jachetinoa, this Tambalaya, and he made that Miss Jadan Stachila take teaching what is Tambalaya. The Kuchin Chipa Chichan race or Chichio Kuchin Kuchiteba race. Tela Kutsugeta Nazuti Tekatori to system, but I said to pay to Mando a huge lose.
So for all of these people, there are some who don't experience any pain at all from this stimulus, and some people who think it's the most painful thing.
That dinner by me cashing the Tadageta Kuchin the chair by Manako Nazu from Induceries. And we cash like the better Nazu the huge to stand Nasu and the better ponying on the Nazu the chichi didn't do secondus.
So what's important about this when you're teaching about something like pain is that the experience of pain is subjective, even if the insult or the stimulus is objective. Right. So the experience, how you interpret it is your own personal experience, but the stimulus can be the same and people have different responses.
Re that things that balanga so get you question data chung you question data chuba chichang you by na la ro ane anga so ge ta ane tela thebe ge ta chi nywa chi ro ti mi gar ge so so ge nywa la shi sha de ta nga so yi tong yi cheng gi cher per ga ne yong ko man ro yin ris.
So when we are teaching in neuroscience about the, let me see, I think I have these slides. 1 second, I had them just now. When we're teaching about pain, we have to recognize in neuroscience, we're dealing with the physical stimulus and the change that it makes in the nervous system, but we are also dealing with the full experience, the personal experience. And so we can have the physical or what you've been referring to as the mental. They're both part of our understanding of pain.
Da de ka se ba nga so ge na zu se ke che she on sta ba la ya te la ya tang bo nga so mi bo ta chi mi bo ga ne nga chu la ya ku chin chi le ge yo wa te ne ne nga chu wang sa tha zi ne ba la ya ji ge kan da stu yo me tang le pe na la ya na zu ke chwa de kan da le ge yo me de ta ka cha ma ane chang yo re sta nga chu ton du do she pa ma ne che chu tang ge she ku na shi de nga chu liu ge ni ba la yo pe ge na chu ta chi ku chwa chi go wa 지금 딱 그친 레비기니 땅때 땅 샘나네 아니 지금 나주게 저한테 아니 지금 용구여 와다 뭐 데이터 참마 아니 공부 시켰던 데비기 땅데 아니 레시자기요레스.
So what we would want to teach our students is what we understand about the mechanism, but we also want them to be able to integrate it and to see how it fits into their worldview.
다 지금 아주 그럼 진짜로 트립이 값을 아니 당보들이야 내도 수기 생리기네 땅데 생각은 레시자비게 아니 지금 아주 따뜻 주로 데이터 무시하지 무시는 거 제라야 그렇지 않으나 아니 데이터 구속구속에 단직된 거 따뜻 주로 데나라야 간다스 그 중특사리 간다로 지도 캐파간으로 지도 데이터 냠도 지가 들게 내가 주줘야 돼요 딜라야 계속 차도스.
So we have folks who are studying pain or nociception. So from a very detailed level to look at the differences in how these action potentials are firing. So table 4 wisely included the action potential as part of their lesson plan. And that's important because these little lines here describe or show action potentials. So for your students to understand what's happening here and what this means, they need to understand how we represent action potentials, how they work in neuroscience, and how we represent them in shorthand. And so our goals when we're teaching is for students to be able to understand all the little details, including the receptors that change in order for us to put together an experience of pain. So one of the things that I think might be a challenge as you're trying to teach these things in your classes is how easily your students will be able to get access to new information.
Nyanda danda dina do hamsan la ya tribi kapsa jigti kariyoresena ji dina do ye nitsu data ane ji raya la li how yores.
So we have many examples in research about how we study the mechanism of pain.
Nyanda danda nga so ji simjik na na ane danda nga so nazu choro gi litsu chora nazu choro gi sortang te ko la simjik chi ya gi ane simjik chi sha ju gi ane ikcha dina mambo nya yores.
But we also have many studies that focus on what you would call suffering, the mental aspect of pain.
Dati nanshingi ane tangi chizu sereba nanshinde nga so ane samgi dunye se chwarwa tetang jevi yokola ya shinji chisha jugu tina ya mabu yores.
So my cousin right now is on her way to go get her chemotherapy treatment. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and so she's on her way to have chemotherapy right now.
Da ngarang pinje jing ba na da kola ya nga suwe numage tene chwarwa te chongde yores tene te chongde yores tanda te ba na da chemotherapy is loko menju jes to kwati tanda ne te chigan ru yes.
And one of the things she described to me as they were going through the process to discover that she has this cancer was when she did her biopsy and they had to cut out a part of her. She described how painful it was.
Da tina ne ko da tambo takshe chia la ro takshe chi bi kapse da chi dine yoba te tenke go ro takshe chi bi kapse biopsy sena da nga suge zupu na ne da thapong chi chilo tende da te gona shi chi go ro tin sambala ye te da tumbu chi tongu ye shlo la biopsy si tongu yo ro o da tombi ge ne ta de shi jang sambala ya ane mo ge da de da ha chang ta chi nasu ha chang chenbu imbi ge ne ta de shi jang dus.
But she had two different experiences. One, her husband was there and he held her hand while they were cutting her. And in the other experience, he wasn't there.
Mola ya da ko nazu se gi so tanda ti kapse ro ta se ti chi kapse ane ta chi nazu mando ani chong sha so ko ta namba mando tambo de ka re se na ta ko te nga so re chi sha chi de ta da no ne thapung tong gu yo ro ta se chi chi to ti tong be kapse thama chi la mo chu ka nyam ti yo ris thama chi la chu ka nyam ti yo ma res.
And what she described is the experience of pain when she was alone was much greater than the same experience, the same physical stimulus when she was with her husband and he was holding her hand.
Da mo gi de se jang stambala ya ta nazu se ti ge cholo de ki jang stambala ya mo chipu imbi ge kapse chong we ge da ko ya da ya chi paro mo ga ne ta chi da sha do chi langu yo wa tha pun chi lo tong go yo wa o te chi we kapse mo chipu imbi kapse choji ge nazu te da mo ge chuka ta nyam te ye mo chuka mo la pas imbi ge kap ton ye pi ge ne ta te le ta ha chang ge da chenbu ro
So, do you think there is any neuroscience behind that experience that she's having? I'd like to hear from the tables. Do you think there's any neuroscience that can account for the experience that she had?
No.
No, actually, there are many studies that explain exactly that. So I would like you to look up and to think about what neuroscience or psychology study could you do to test if there is a difference between your experience of pain when you are alone or when someone is with you.
jela ya ni ti chapter ton bi ge ni wan sa chen ri tong sam kan lu bi ge tak she kare yu me se ati chi su ge tat pa chen degrees.
Think about it and like in 2 minutes, see if you can come up with an idea for an experiment that you could do that would help us to understand if there is some scientific basis to that difference.
Tanda kama ni ring la ya chi su ge tu de chi na se na ta kar chin chi ro chi sta zo de ta tin da do ge ani ko ge ta chro de la mando le ge yor wa ta ro pa yu me ge kap se so mando le ba de la ya ani kun de she jaga ge chen ri ki ta ko ge te ma su na chen ri ki jap ten do kari yu sa re se ti gang la ani tak she kan do chi dri bi ne ani ti de she kan do chi ja ge me te sta ro chi.
So just 2 minutes, very quickly, design an experiment that you could do to test if the experience of pain is different when you're with someone or when you are by yourself.
That's how you talk shit to Google your list, talk shit to be at the Carlana, and the Charon Chipo, you patayana, Mijenda Tanyan to your P. Perhaps the Charon Layatra, Tungedo, Nazu Chitsobaina, Nazu, Sorton, that you shoot Mando, your race, Hachora, or Tegan Laya, and a talk shit to be a Chango Chichirochis.
겐다 좋아지 땅고 데 록바유디 나지 치른 줘야든지 벤순도 요래요 말했어 록바유디 나지 총은 줘야 그 벤순도 록바유디 나지 치른 줘야든지 벤순 요래요
Yoris. Hey, Jillian, here's a question. Yeah, come on, you get to talk to the chat. He has a question about you have mentioned that once when someone's with you, you feel less pain, but that is example. But is there any case or any example about the opposite effect?
Yes, there is. Yeah, but I want an experiment for that one first, and then we can think about the other. Yes, they actually both work.
Yoris, right? Ropa is the man nazi chindu in the yoris, present in the yoris. Imene tambude, that tambude ropa is the nazi chondu achura, take the laya, netoxation gigi, chagochiroches, and taking us with kitchen with jela, then they don't samba de us with tagins.
랑아저 타체서 아니 되그래
They decide they want to share.
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
All us.
랑아저 데라 페나 소소 때 교가 옛날에 게임에 옛날에 직 나바 명하는 지 딘티를 교가 옛날 나즈 아니 중앙다 교가면은 나즈 체온들이 켜바민도스랑 이바민도 스티팅 거레스 아니 다 교가데 게임에 잠리셔네 pen 투바셔 khadijila ramate khadijila 다 디네 다 게임에나 교가는 코나데 심바데 딜라나 코 나즈 추루 로 마레스 게시로아 이전 전부째 디네 시부차에 khadijila 아니 교가 chillena ani shumba chana that nazi this churun to swat less vares tinita je is
All the pain different like a different experience of pain with somebody is also depend on other conditions, because we think if a husband or wife, if the couple has a like fight just
Yes.
before the visit, it doesn't. If someone is with you, it not sure it reduces the pain. It may cause more pain.
It really does, and there is a scientific study that shows that.
Also, it's a depend. It's depend.
Yeah. So here I actually am showing, this is a report from, it's a news report of an article that was published in 2019.
Tadi garesena nyuton Google la ane 심지그 점이 년도 직도에 사고가 되게 강라야 아니 nga 소게야 섭벌 그 점에서 그러다 섭벌 보면 그 모터 지야지 점이 비춰지지레스.
So many of the things that you just described are included in this study. That is to say, the touch of a loved one is different from the touch of a stranger or from someone who you are not happy with.
다른 제 대시자샤스 단도 디나라 가 대시자샤스나 수수라다 배지와 테니치게 네 라파 청하다 야나 아니 미 무미신치게 수수 저와 테니치게 라파 차야데 아니 무미신치게 라파 차야다 야나 아니 다치 투파자니 치스고라다 주 수수동 컴마동아 상컴마동아게 미치게 라파 청하레 만도레 두세야 두 소마단다게 아니 좀이 되나나 대시자샤스.
So when they tested this, the article that they published, the title is Empathy Predicts an Experimental Pain Reduction During Touch.
이 값을 그 속에 덕시지하게 심지그 점이 되게 디테일도 왔다 가서 그 값을 가서 그랬다. 엠패티스나 가서 냠냠그 셈스 그랬다. 미젠다 되게 데이트가 저한테 수수웨요. 데이터 냠튼 와서 그런 냠냠그 셈 되게 가르치 그랬으나 아니 냠냠그 셈 되게 아니 가서 미젠다 지라야 락파 청위가 값을 아니 가서 그랬다. 지금 다 들어와 단단 데 값을 다 나주서 그러와 다 나주 지용아 다야 때라야 아니 거기다 원본으로 짓거두스.
So what they studied here is how much pain relief women got when their partners, their loved ones, were holding their hands.
한다디 가서 도시지대 가래서는 부모족으로 부모족에 라 아니 부모족라 수수게 아니 지 조각에 조각당이나 수수게다 로다기로와 락파청위 값스다 수수라 지와유니기 다 로다기 락파청위 값스 나수디 아니 같이서 말아 진용치요메 되고라 도시지레스.
And they compared it to when the partners touched their hands or when a stranger touched the hand or when no one interacted with them at all.
한다 도시지비 값스 수수게 로다티기 락파청야다 미무시마치 락파청야 근데다 손에 미천다 치기 락파마청야 되려고니 통섬라야 유스도시지레스.
And they found a very significant relationship between holding hands and pain reduction.
나한테 값을 고속에 아니 대화식 전부지 통요레스다 나서 라파게 청하다 라파가 송하다 아니 나주치 용하다니고 바로라야 대화식 전부 통샤스.
So one of the things that you could do with your students is to have them ask these questions and then go to see if the scientific literature has already asked those questions.
한다 단다 치가주 답시지가를 그래서나 섭투스로서 섭투스고 공세성 그치 공세성 산으로 제라야 아니 그쪽에 셰주 딱 공세동 삼츠띠기 될라야 아니 전력은 나라야 되고라 랑어치 도문도 땡아서야 다요레스.
So many of these studies are published in English. So when you're asking your students to think about them or to go and look for support for these questions, they may need some help translating it.
단단데 값을 심지그 소인데 상만도 다 디노나요로 인치노나요로 이스탄발라야 디나로 치체로 칠레나야 지치나 루트솔라야 양고 지구안이에 있었다 근데 더 정거를 보이게 줄고야 당연히 지금 개주탄 이주로 파티나 코그레스.
So something here that I've highlighted, not translated because we just found it as we were in class, but they used new EEG technology, which you may be familiar with, and they collected information from the brains, directly from the brains of the people in the study.
보이네 지라청요 말에서 같이면 단단한 순서를 트그트그니 주와 대값인 바나 아니 가르치오레스는 디나도게 다 탁세심지 집이 값으로와 아니 땅아수 미기라파청 디나도 그 단나주 소스고로 와디 값을 아니 레피노나 카나도 친구고 유메테 단단아수 레서가 보레 이지요와 이지기 답세트 베주당다 최초 만취시가 천천히요와 이지 그때 어때 베주당데 또 레피기 나와야 지달라 소파기 남바 카나도 친구고 유메테 아니 카트라 지름사 록다데 카나도 두고 유메라 소파테 아니 카트카툴라 체인지 그요레스.
So when they looked at the EEGs of both partners at the same time, their brain signals started to synchronize and to happen at the same time.
다다데 값을 고게다 다 로단 차에서 그러다 죽으시면 이샤나다 고 로단 차에 아니 레서가 로르테라 야타비 값이 마이나 단다데 다 체인지비 값을 그런 차에 레서가 로르테 앤 드림이amba 거네로와 다 싱크로나이즈는 다 그런 직발 차에 뭐 직발 거네 아니 그 지금 총거 거네 아니 그 두스 다 파츠칸도야 지거로 다 로코다티 어때 지금 총거 거네 파츠칸도 두스.
So the cells firing in the same pattern in the same locations across two different brains was related to pain relief.
다다데 값을 가르세나 맞수게다 레파만도 니타 미니게 레파나나야 아니 단다게다 로다치거로 로다티 그 지금 총거도 스타 누구요 와다 누구요 바데 지금 총임바티 가리탄데레세나 내가 수게다 나주디 레바스고 나주 지용데 당웨게 니탄데다 안데원도스.
But this is something that we probably know intuitively. I think many of us, if you see someone who looks upset or is crying or looks like they're in pain, we reach out and we touch them.
다티 바나가 수게 지가 다 가수그레 삼루나네 가수가 랑신트 초한다고 지게네 단치가 레기루스 다 피차샤파네 미치지 등에나 홍데도 중국의 파탄치 삼바치부마 되어가네 tan테 총바인바나 맞수가 랑신그 초한테 칼라고네 담포테 파송데타 메텔라에 지다 락파게 차야게네 tan테 용구요레스.
And so if your brain waves are synchronizing and you're showing more empathy for each other, then the person who is not experiencing pain can help support the other person.
다단데 값이 바나가 수게 다 레피기 레서가 로르티로다 고 지금 중국어니 다 누구 옆에 네탄테나로 총바인바이나 다고 나즈 용구 메니 되게 가리펜 나즈 용구 메니 되게 아니 나즈 용구 요바 데라야 나파리 청와다 라소 빠지고 랑바인바이나 아니 현대 되게 나즈티 지금 용와라 용 진용하다가 뱅교 리스타디 소등아 다 대가 소에 냠용의 섬이로 냠용의 센티 템발테네 거레스.
But you can also probably imagine, just as the first question, one of the questions was, what if it goes in the other direction? So what if you are experiencing pain and then someone else starts to experience that pain because you are experiencing it?
단다 데레 도바상도 동바이나 단기토나 하시는 저런 게다 스물 나주치 연구요레스 나주치 연구요 바테 아니 미션다 치키 초라 투발라텐데스 거라도 초라 텐데데 아니 미션다 되게 나주치 연바이바이나 아니 간다치그레스 그 도와된 거레스.
So this activity in this alpha wave activity in the mirror neurons is a mechanism that can explain how we can empathize with each other and share pain relief or share pain.
다다데 가수게 밀롱 원서 테스트나 요피게 알파게 랍지고로 되게 아니 가수 아니 냠냠의 삼게 값을 니 미션다데라야 미션다기 따지 둥에다 다 싱글라 소파티 니 냠트 뇽발라네 데타 미션다데기 나주티 뇽트 tantiage ne tanten desijagores.
So to fully understand that, we want to look at the receptor mechanisms, but we also want to look at it from a whole experience, and we can use brain scanners, MRI scanners, to get some ideas about the experience of pain.
나한테 내던데 차 상황이 도와라야 담봉아 쪽에 아니 갈수그래다 밀렘바게 레카치 쪽 모티 하고는 맨세는 쪽에 아니 지금 냠신용하게 내던데 용거라 대당 아니 레픽이 나나 저와 가르도 지금 레픽 동게 레스가 로르라스 바간는 우치랭게 요메 라소바게 내던데 차 상황이 하고 그래서.
So this is something that I think is really important. And after you've had this conversation in your classes about the Buddhist perspective and the neuroscience perspective, I think it's important to know that the neuroscience perspective is very large.
yang de la ko to kan do chi me zo nga su do style is ta na ngai tam bai bai na da da wang cha chen ri ke yang ko na su ti ge the la ya sam lu tang tang ta ji ko to chi go ro ati zo ha chang ya ja chen bo rin do sang gus.
So here the researcher actually comments that I don't think anybody's suggesting that the nociception itself is impacted by touch.
Da da de ka se kare de la ya so bo de kare se se ge me nga su nociceptions na de la nga su ge sum da shan ko sum se ya ta chu de lu gi da kar su ta ani lem ba ge lem bi kap se na su de ro da ya man ru na wa de la ne nga su ge ani mi ge la pa chang ba na shu chen te ge re sam go dus.
So the physical stimulus doesn't change and converting it to a neural signal doesn't change.
Da de kap se kare se na nga su ge da zu ki wa da zum kham ge ta ku chen te la juran ru go yo ma re ku chen te la the ni chong wi ge te wang sa ge da la pa jura chi go te la ya juran ru go yo ma re.
But the full experience is altered by that interaction.
Yimbai na ya nga so ge te ge da ta nyam nyong chu ro nyong wa cha chang de la ya mi jen da ta nyam de ta den ji chung de wa chung so ga ta la pa ge chang ma chang la so pa de ten de ta ani ko la ya jura du ta na shu chen de ki de.
So there are people who study pain at the level of the physical stimulus, and then there are neuroscientists who study pain at the level of the full experience.
Da de kap se wan san chen ri na na chen ri pa ga na da na zu se te ani nilam ba gi che de la ro ani ko ta she chi ni wan san chen ri ba yo re de na shin ge nga su ge ta nyong wa cha chang ba na zu se te ge nyong wa cha chang bi ge ni tang la ta she chi ni wan san chen ri ba yo re.
So my cousin who had that experience where her husband was holding her hand and it didn't feel like pain, but when she was alone, it felt painful. There's actually science to explain that that happens with many people.
Ani ngaram pinja de la ya ani mo chu pu yo pick up su ga na zu cho de tang ani chuka gi lak pa song pa su na su cho ani cha mando yo pi gi ne tan de la ya ni de she ja ga wang sa chen ri ki yo ko
and so if we go back to this idea of how the physical stimulus is different from the full experience as everything is integrated, you'll see that we have many levels that we can study and learn about pain.
Cha chang wi ge nang se chu ra li chu te la ta bai mai na ne de la ya nga su ge ta na zu se te la ya ta she chi ya ge ya rim ba ma su na ha chang mang bo yo ba nga su to dus.
And it's really not that different from the Buddhist perspective.
Ta de dus ta bai mai na ya ko nang ba ge mo ba shi ta ta ya ko cheper ten na min dus.
Okay. So I know that we're at time for a break. And I will have us take a break. When we come back, we will look at another table, lesson plans and their assessments and see what else we can learn about neuroscience from your other tables.
Tege kusugi ta jeshib jiorwa jiro tanga gana ba te kanda no jirendo ane tela tene te tanga tsuge yang shenda